What's up, guys? Hope everyone's doing great. Today, I'm really happy and excited because I finally finished the Banshee build, at least one of my Banshee builds. The other one is gonna be really a work in progress, but this one is finally complete. You know, I want to say something to people looking to purchase any Yamaha Banshees, no matter the year. I was kind of tricked when purchasing this one because I knew it needed, a lot of work, but I thought it needed mostly chassis work, suspension work, etc. Things that I needed to customize to kind of make it my own. But honestly, I didn't expect that the engine needed that much work. It did, when I initially bought it, it did have a cool stator cover and all that stuff. And I wasn't necessarily the most experienced person with Banshees. The person who sold me this bike actually lied to me and told me that the engine has been bored, etc. It's been rebuilt and all that stuff. So I checked the engine when I, bought it. I didn't really know what to look for. So I thought, and I believed him and I trusted him. Took it out, probably first or my second run on the engine. The engine completely blew. Now, I thought that I would only need to change the head. So I looked inside, the rod actually snapped. So the bearings on the bottom end, the crank bearings were completely shot. Transmission was fine. Crank bearings were completely gone. The piston was completely banged up. It was banging the cool head and banging all the stuff. So I actually had to purchase a new cool head with new cylinders, and now it's actually bored. Now it's bored to 392. This is the 392 Cheetah Power, and it's got a welded crank in it, just for longevity, and all of the stuff has been replaced. And it had a aftermarket stator, which was junk, aftermarket flywheel, which was junk. And I went for the OEM. This cost me a shitload because I had to go buy an OEM flywheel, which is like $500 something, with an OEM stator, which was another $500 something. Other than the rebuild kit that I bought, which was almost $2,000 for the rebuild kit itself. And that's including the cool head. I am reusing my electron carbs, which is fantastic. I had to also purchase a set of titanium bolts for this thing. Another thing that I just wanted to make sure, the lights weren't working and everything, but that was fine. I fixed that issue. I had to install the regulator over there, and now everything works perfectly. The light works as it should. I like having a lot of titanium bolts on this thing from BP Racing and from Racetech Titanium, and they make beautiful titanium bolts. A lot of the shock bolts, except for the front shock bolts, are titanium, and I have a few, incoming titanium bolts for the light holders. And I will say that I prefer the plastic or whatever this is, the plastic fiber material that comes from factory. Of course, the aluminum stuff looks cooler for me, and I like that they're like a 2 or 3 piece where you can, access the sprocket and stuff like that, and a case saver. But I will say this, if for any reason the flywheel were to rub on the aluminum stator cover, it will scratch up the flywheel, and it'll probably cause more damage and more heat. So even if it's not installed, if these things come loose, which they shouldn't because you Loctite them. And I also like the fact that the OEM stator cover comes with the gasket. So I like that. I like that you can, put the gasket. And another thing is the aluminum ones don't tend to have a rubber bushing where the shift shaft comes out from. And I don't really like that, because this kind of adds like another support to the shift shaft. Because if you think about it, this thing really does take a beating. And I noticed because both engines had aluminum covers, I noticed I had to get a new shift shaft because the lack of the rubber or whatever Teflon or whatever bushing that there is here causes the friction between the shaft and the stator cover to kind of wear like a small groove in it, and that kind of sucks. Okay, so I just finished a quick drive and I have the bike back on the stand. So I was extremely happy. The engine felt great. I spent 2 days, just breaking it in. I let it idle for 15 minutes, check the fluids, then I let it idle for another 15 minutes, of course, after it cools down, just to make sure all the bolts and everything are retorqued, everything is great. Then I run at 25% capacity, then 50% and 75, etc., 100%, and then start to open it up properly. And I personally, I tune it a bit rich while I do the break-in process, just in case, you know. Sometimes these can leak even after a leak down test. Sometimes they can, you know, break or crack or something, and I don't want it running lean. So just in case, I have it rich. But anyways, I was riding it and everything felt absolutely wonderful. And then I noticed the clutch started slipping, and slowly, this, because I have the hydraulic clutch, the Magura hydraulic clutch, and slowly, this usually has a good, you know, amount of resistance, and it started to lose pressure as if there's no fluid. And the bike was really hard to, you know, stop when it's in gear. It just wanted to keep moving forward as if there's no clutch anymore. And it started to stall 2-3 times, because unless it's in neutral, it would idle. But if the gear is engaged, there was literally no clutch. So I followed it, and then I cut the zip ties here, and I noticed that the exhaust has burnt into, you know, the cable. Even though I have some precautionary measures, I did put heat shield on it here and here. Just wasn't enough, I guess. The part that on the top here is where it leaks, and it let all the clutch fluid out. So now I have no clutch, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to readjust the Magura clutch, which sucks. So anyone who's buying the Magura clutch, please make sure, even if you route it, because I routed it exactly the same way as OEM, okay? It can move, so just make sure you zip tie it very well, because also from here it's kind of a floating design, so there's nothing really, there's no clamp or something to hold the cable properly. So I would just make sure you zip tie it onto the frame or something. But again, it's a hydraulic clutch, you don't want to zip tie it and kind of make it too complicated to where there's added pressure on the tubes. So yeah, I have to figure that out. I'm probably going to get a spare line and bleed it out completely and do a flush and have to readjust it. I don't really know how to do that because I've never done a rebuild on a hydraulic clutch before. Just, you know, the initial setting to where it self-adjusts and all that. That's all I've done. So I have to figure that out. But other than that, I was so happy with the power. I was going to go with a 421. But I went with a 392 Cheetah, and it's brilliant. Really very, very nice. And I'll probably build a 421 on the other bike, but it would be nice to kind of, you know, have a good feel for the stock, basically, and then the 392 and then the 421. But I think, you know, for trails, this is tuned for race gas. It uses the Sunoco 112. This is the fuel that it uses. And I'm not going crazy with the timing or anything. It is +4 timing, race gas, 20cc domes, 392, and it runs absolutely brilliant. I didn't want to go with 17cc, but I also didn't want to do 22cc. So this is capable of running pump gas, but it's, you know, much happier on race gas. The setup of this bike is for race gas. Again, it's not something that I drive every single day, so it's kind of like a jewel. So once I take it out, it's meant to be driven hard. And people think because it looks good that I don't, you know, want to take it off-road. They're absolutely wrong. I'm going to thrash the heck out of this thing. I'm going to do some jumps. I wasn't going to install, you know, expensive suspension and all that stuff, basically motocross suspension, so I can just drive it on the street. If it was just for the street, I would have kept the, you know, either the OEM shocks or at least no reservoirs. So yeah, runs great. Everything is good. Just kind of pissed off with regards to the, you know, the clutch cable, which is not really a cable, the clutch line, which is bleeding now. But yeah, it's just that this is definitely not supposed to happen. As far as the tension goes, I feel like this is the most quad, at least, that I've driven, that people tend to notice and appreciate. Even the police, believe it or not, at least in my area, even the police, they know what this is and they appreciate it. And they appreciate it even further once I actually stop for them. So yeah, because with this thing, honestly, it's such a bullet. And right now, I can really feel the difference between the stock bore and the aftermarket bore with all the race gas tuning and all that stuff, because it livens it up. There is, even with it running rich right now, it's running better than, you know, when the stock was running perfectly dialed in. So there's a little bit of bog as expected, but then once it goes higher into the revs, it just opens up like a turbo. So very, very cool. And I'm gonna leave it rich for a little bit. I'm gonna check the plugs. I'm definitely gonna do a plug chop and, you know, see how it is. It's got the stock spark plugs now, the NGK, but I'm gonna have the Ardium installed. I usually keep the stock ones just during the rebuild process and until I change the oil, because the first oil change after the bottom end rebuild, there's going to be some tiny little crap in there and stuff. Nothing major, but yeah. Okay guys, so I was in luck. I just wanted to show you. I didn't really have to get the whole clutch kit. I got the line, which they sell by itself, and it's got these banjo, you know, connectors or whatnot. I'll just have to reuse the banjo bolts that are on the Banshee. Here's the new clutch, Magura clutch line. This is the new hydraulic line, and as you can see, I put these Kevlar and steel braids around it, and this should make it virtually bulletproof and no more failures. Even though I'm going to reroute it the exact same way as the OEM was, it's just, you know, cables are different than lines. They won't, even if they come into contact with some heat, it's not really going to damage a steel cable. But a hydraulic line, there is definitely a potential, as we've seen, to be punctured from the heat and seep out all the fluid and have no clutch anymore. So yeah, this is just really cool. This is from, let me show you here. This is from DI. Again, these are meant to be extreme performance spark plug boot covers and not boot covers, but the wire, the spark plug wire ignition cover. And yeah, they do a great job at, you know, preventing heat from doing any damage. So let's reroute it and we'll go from there. Okay, so I just took out the Monster for a little drive after installing the new clutch line and all that stuff, and there it is, completely protected now. So I think this thing is now officially bulletproof, and it kind of protects also the coolant hose here. So this is pretty cool. Serves two purposes, and it's braided. You know, I decided to put it all the way to the end, and the pressure is, there we go. As soon as you touch it, there's resistance. So that's how it should be. But yeah, so far so good. I just took it near my house because I didn't want anything bad to happen and then for me to be far away. But honestly, so far this is an absolute monster. Really, you have no idea how powerful this thing is, especially because it's clean. peaking fast. What a beautiful free ride, really. I mean, I'm just in awe right now of this machine because it's been through a lot. We've been through a lot together to finally get it dialed in and built perfectly and have a beautiful day like this to free ride in open fields that has, you know, some beautiful jumps, some nice tarmac. It's like a rally stage all to myself. And that's what this is about. You know, it's not a racing bike, but, you know, of course it can be set up to be one. And this one is kind of in the middle, but it just jumps beautifully, handles the road beautifully. The width is amazing. The response is phenomenal. And, you know, of course, being a two-stroke, that low end is just sometimes a bit laggy, but that's the beauty of a two-stroke. And this being a twin two-stroke, it drives so unique. Whether you're familiar with two-stroke dirt bikes or other two-stroke machines, to have almost a 400cc twin cylinder on a quad that's a feather such as this is really a beautiful experience. And I encourage anyone, you know, if you can get your hands on something like this, I would totally do it. And I'm speaking from my personal experience between, you know, multiple platforms, whether it be it cars, whether it be it, you know, quads or bikes or dirt bikes. I think this is such a unique character, and to have it, you know, in immaculate condition, running everything as it should, including the lights and all that stuff, it's just special because, you know, considering the year, this is a 2004 and we're in 2023 right now, and I'm enjoying it just as much as my, you know, Yamaha Raptor or any other YFZ 450. But this is just, in terms of raw top end, where the Raptor shines in the low end stuff and in that grunt being a 700cc four-stroke, this just wants to pull and pull and pull. It's almost scary because when I'm flooring it and I'm on top gear, I'm like, okay, when is it gonna end? When is it gonna end? And honestly, this road is not long enough. It just wants to keep going, and it scared the crap out of me because it entices you to keep going, but you have to brake at some point because it's a dead end. And I can't tell you how many times I've overshot it and I've locked up all fours multiple times. I would lock up the fronts and the rears, and the bike would just go sideways a little bit and barely stop before the marker. So thankfully no incidents, but just, you know, it is scary. And the more power you put on this thing, the more scary it becomes. But obviously, if you're gonna do a Banshee, I really would say do it right. Make sure everything is dialed in, because like I said, I've seen two local 421 builds, 421. Of course, I can't verify the internals and everything. I can't take it apart, but having, you know, seen those, was kind of let down. I was pretty disappointed, and I was like, for sure, once mine is done, even being a 392, like I said, it'll whip those big time. So I will probably build a proper 421, go through the whole engine top to bottom and make sure everything is done right. Obviously, being a 421, it'll be a 4 mil. But yeah, the important thing I would say with Banshees, from my experience, is not whether you have a 392, not whether you have modifications and all that stuff. It's whether the condition of the internals are really, really good. It's whether your carburetors are good quality, everything is dialed in. Just making sure the bike is fresh, topped up on all the fluids, all that stuff, making sure the exhaust silencers are not clogged. Everything has to run smoothly. One thing that's left to do on this bike for me is just to change the bushings of the basket, because I can hear a little rattling sound. And you know, I checked the Hinson basket before I put it back on the bike, and there was some play. It wasn't too bad, but honestly, I was just lazy. And here I am telling you guys to build a Banshee correctly, and I do everything perfect. I build everything perfect, and then I just get lazy to change the bushings on the basket. So being that it's been through a top end and bottom end rebuild, I'm probably going to change the oil soon. And once I do that, the clutch will come out and all the little details. So I'll remove the bolts and all that and access the basket and make it run perfectly. So that's it, guys, for today. I put this guy through a nice run today. Super pleased, really super pleased with the Banshee. I will say, for my fellow quad bike lovers, if you were able to get your hands on a Banshee, I would totally do it, because they're really so unique, so much character. That two-stroke feel is just so nice. This bike is all about the feeling, you know, all about the feeling and the power, obviously, but it's all about the feeling. Mix those two, the two-stroke feel plus that almost unlimited power. It's really hard to define the power on this thing, because like I said, it just wants to keep going. Anyways, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Gonna head back home now, give this thing a wash and tuck it away until next time. Ciao, guys. See you next time.